rescued. And we do have some emergency preparedness tips, and there's a link to a lot of the sources that Andy just mentioned. Thank you.
Okay, so if you'll just hang out for a minute, we have a proclamation for you. Whereas National Preparedness Month creates an opportunity for every resident of the city of Lemon Grove to prepare their homes, businesses, and communities for any type of emergency. Whereas California residents have previously experienced the effects of various disasters, including severe winter storms, earthquakes, and devastating wildland fires, resulting in loss of life and damages costing millions of dollars. The aftermath of the 2003 and 2007 firestorms in San Diego County and more recent wildfires across the state demonstrated the necessity for careful and thorough emergency planning and preparedness among individuals, communities, and agencies locally. Whereas the recent and unprecedented winter storms of 2024 brought awareness to the dangers which heavy wind, rain, and flooding can cause across the region. And whereas the loss of life and damage to property can be reduced if appropriate emergency preparedness measures are taken before, during, and after a major emergency. And whereas National Preparedness Month is observed in September, and all citizens of the city of Lemon Grove are encouraged to participate in citizen preparedness activities and asked to review the Ready campaign's website at ready.gov or heartlandfire.org and become more prepared. Now therefore, I, Jennifer Mendoza, although it's signed by the actual mayor, the Mayor Pro Tem for the city of Lemon Grove, together with the City Council, do hereby proclaim the month of September 2024 as National Preparedness Month, and be it further proclaimed that the Mayor and the City Council of the city of Lemon Grove urge all citizens and businesses to develop their own emergency preparedness plan and work together toward creating a more prepared community.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have general public comment. During this portion of the meeting, the public may express their concerns not pertaining to items on the agenda tonight. Please note that according to state law, the City Council is not permitted to respond to any comments expressed by the public. If appropriate, staff will be directed to follow up with the speaker. Per Lemon Grove's Municipal Code, Chapter 2.14.150, all remarks must be addressed to the City Council as a body and not to any individual City Council member. Each speaker will have a maximum of 3 minutes. When speaking, please observe the green, yellow, and red light timer at the podium. The red light indicates that it is time for the approach the podium to begin speaking. Okay, first, we have Susan Kennedy.
Okay, is this sufficient? Thank you. My name is Susan Kennedy. I live in San Diego County, and I'm a volunteer with United Sovereign Americans, not a spokesperson. United Sovereign Americans, USA, is a nationwide organization with thousands of active volunteers in over 20 states. Today I come to you as a concerned citizen sharing alarming information about our state's voter roll database. Research of the state's voter database was done through hundreds of hours of research conducted by highly qualified and credentialed data teams. An analysis of the 2022 election researched by these data teams using only official data provided by California elections officials indicates serious issues with compliance of federal law. I have submitted to you for the record and the public the results of the aforementioned analysis showing the votes cast, counted, and certified may not all be valid and accurate under the Constitution and under the law. The resolution demands an end to the inaccuracy and uncertainty plaguing our elections, along with a summary of our findings and the laws that apply. I am not here to cast any blame or aspersions on any elected official. I do not suggest any candidates in any race have wrongly won or lost their races, nor do I advocate for the overturning or rerunning of any past election. Though you bear no direct responsibility for anything in the electoral process, I come to you, our closest elected representatives, for support and action. I am asking that you consider the resolution and take the necessity for valid elections seriously by adding the resolution to your next meeting agenda. We encourage you to visit uniteforfreedom.com, that's unite, the number 4, freedom.com, and learn more about our organization and our goal to restore valid elections throughout our country.
Thank you for your comments. We'll look this over. Okay, next we have Debbie Veronic.
Good evening. I would like to ask the City Council to please bring the vote of these sleeping cabins to the council. I understand that you people, or maybe a couple of people, maybe gave permission to the supervisor, Monica Steep, or Step, I'm sorry, I'm not sure how she pronounces it, but the action of the sleeping cabins has never been brought to the City Council. I'm not quite sure I understand why, especially with the outcry of the citizens of the state, or the city, sorry. I know there are quite a few people that are for it. I just think it's the wrong place, and I think it should be brought against this council for a vote, instead of just being shut you down kind of attitude. So that is my request, and I hope you look at it with consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Next we have Ken King.
Good afternoon. I'm here as well with the Troy Street Project. You've asked for this to be on the agenda at least 2 different meetings. You guys have ignored us, except for one person. You need to put it on the agenda. The people of Lemon Grove want to vote on it. We have the choice. You can't just railroad us anymore. Number 2, conflict of interest. Some people are putting their signs up on properties that they voted to get a chicken place put in, and a car wash. And then all the other properties that the same person owns has their signs up all over. To me, that's a conflict of interest. How much are you getting put in your pocket? Second of all, you need to tell your goon squad, the one behind me sitting in the white shirt, Tommy Potter, your little mom, they need to stop or I'm gonna get them with a slander lawsuit. Because you're feeding them information that is incorrect. And you need to stand up and denounce what they're saying. Third, the building of property across the street is building new homes. We were told back in April that we were gonna have the street replaced. They gave the city money to have it recoded. I talked with Izzy. He sent me an email saying that it was going to be done in June or July. He was going to have it marked out, and it would be done in September and August. When I asked him again about this, now he's saying that it's not gonna be done until fall of 2025, because he's worried about heavy equipment. We talked to the contractors, there's no heavy equipment. They said there was not gonna be anything else running down that road, and there's no excuse why it's not being done, especially since the city already got the money to do the project. Again, it's corruption. You guys need to stop. Open your books, put the Troy Street project on the agenda, and stop being cowards.
Thank you. Next, Mr. John L. Wood.
John L. Wood. I've got a packet of all the candidates that are running for all the offices that are open. The one I want to bring your attention to is mayoral candidate. Occupation, mayor. That's incorrect. She works for the city of San Diego in communications for the city of San Diego. So she's not, her occupation is not mayor, so this is incorrect. It needs to be corrected. Now.
Thank you, Mr. Wood. Next, Jason Sundberg.
Good evening. I just want to clarify that the one item isn't on the agenda for the public, the hearing of the cell phone tower in San Miguel. Is this correct? Anyhow, that hearing won't be taking place from what I understand, correct?
We'll address that item when it comes before us, but the intention is that it be continued, but we have not considered that yet. Thank you.
Sure. Well, I guess generally I want to urge the council and the public to become a little more proactive on some of these zoning issues, because we're having issues where the public is really unhappy about, for instance, like the drive-through businesses coming up and being approved. But a lot of the problem is we don't have any code that prevents them from being approved. And it would be nice to be able to get on top of these things. I'd like it if we get the citizens advisory councils going again. So that way we can have the public in more of an open forum, saying the kind of businesses that we're gonna want, where we're gonna want them, and actually come up with more of a plan. I understand like a general plan update is gonna be a very expensive and time-consuming endeavor, but that's ultimately what we need. But in the meantime, I really suggest that we start piecemealing the issues that are in the forefront. Like the drive-through thing could probably be fixed with a requirement that they have a sufficient number of queuing spaces. So then it limits the lot size that these things can be put on, or putting them in certain zones. There's a lot of issues. The same thing with the telecommunications facilities. We need to come up with a zoning plan that prioritizes commercial over residential, and if they're put in residential, they should be of a smaller stature and blend much better, and also height limited. This is all within, what the 96 Telecommunications Act would allow, and the case law, especially in San Diego County. But, I just, want to encourage everybody to try to work together and to maybe have more informal events, because obviously you are limited by the Brown Act in responding to whatever is brought to, public comment here at the podium. And, I just think it'd be nice if everybody was a little more available to actually talk freer and have these other outlets, like the, community advisory councils being stated. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you, Mr. Sundberg. Appreciate your comments. Next we have Brenda Hammond.
Good evening. Is this on? Okay. So I'm not gonna rehash what I'm not gonna rehash what I said in, it's not on. Okay, I'm not gonna rehash what I said in La Mesa, El Cajon, and Santee City Council meetings recently, but I would like you to go back and look at those because it has to do with Lemon Grove. It's what started it. So instead, I decided to have fun. So when you see me bouncing around balloons or throwing this balloon around, it's how I do physical therapy. And I reach out and stretch with it and stuff, and then when I'm done, I put smiley faces on them and take them to the kids at all the concerts. Because you know, the parents take them to these concerts and they don't really want it to be there. So they get to play with the balloons. But I would really encourage you to go back and listen to La Mesa, El Cajon, and Santee City Council meetings recently, because Lemon Grove needs to stop hiding this 9/11 stuff from the kids. It was here. Guy lived on Mount Vernon, worked in La Mesa. He's in Gitmo right now. The ACLU's trying to take the death penalty away from him. Give me a freaking break. Okay, thanks. So I'm rowing for all of you.
Thank you, Ms. Hammond. Next we have Karina Corvallis.
Hello, everyone. I was not going to speak, but I just can't hold myself. I was sitting here 1 month ago, 8 months pregnant, until 1 a.m. when we were asking you guys to put the homeless cabins on the agenda. And as far as I understand, you wanted to do it, but I heard from some of you when I met with you separately. Last meeting was canceled for the lack of topics to talk about, which was really ridiculous to me personally. And now we still don't discuss this issue that is completely devastating to a lot of citizens of Lemon Grove and business owners, which I represent both groups. And I don't understand how it's not embarrassing for you guys, especially the ones that are running, to not address this issue publicly with people who probably want to vote for you, people who live in this neighborhood that you're trying to work with. And this is all I want to say, that it's gotta be embarrassing not to talk about it openly. Because there's a lot of information that's very different. Everybody gives us different ideas about what it's going to be. A lot of us don't think it's a good thing, it's an unsafe thing, it's gonna be detrimental to a lot of citizens living here. So, again, I'm here now with my 10 days old child asking you, can we please get information in? Can we please talk about it? And if it's not good for our neighborhood, then we stop this. and do other ways of helping homeless, we want to help. Thank you.
Thank you, and congratulations. Okay, I'm gonna ask staff to, chime in here on some of the comments that were made.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem and City Council members. First, the CAC has actually been reconstituted, and they'll be working on a downtown-specific plan update expansion that is being funded by Sandag. And as soon as we get the grant agreement from Sandag, we'll be able to start that effort. So they'll be looking at both housing and businesses relocated downtown, and that'll work on some of the zoning issues you mentioned, Mr. Sundberg. And then I did have a conversation with county staff, and as soon as the project is ready for discussion, they promised to come back and have a discussion item. I don't have a date for you, so I don't know when it will be back, but they promised that they will come and do a presentation to the full city council once it's ready to have a full discussion.
And so that it will be on the agenda and people will be able to, discuss along the city council
Absolutely,
at that, okay, all right.
yes.
Okay, thank you. So now the general public comment portion of the agenda is closed. Do I have a motion to approve the consent calendar?
I'd like to move that we approve the consent.
Calendar.
Second?
You have a question, Councilmember LeBaron?
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem Mendoza, I was actually gonna ask if we have, well, if I have any of my colleagues, approval in agendizing a conversation about what this city council, not the county board of supervisors, not what Martians are gonna do, not what the senators in Alaska are gonna do, but what this city council is going to do regarding the proposal to construct sleeping cabins for the homeless at Troy Street, because that's what the public's asking us. They're not asking us for a presentation from the county board of supervisors. They already had one across the street. There was more than like 250 people in attendance there, and they were very upset. They're upset with their leadership, starting with us. So the public is coming before us to ask that we put it on the agenda to know what we are gonna do.
Yes,
Do I have a second from anybody?
We'll be doing it that's what we'll be doing at that time, when we have it on the agenda.
No, that's a presentation done by Monica
And
Montgomery
I
Stepp.
just asked if that was going to be an agenda item that that city council members can participate in as well.
Okay, that's a presentation done by them. The public doesn't want a presentation done by them. They wanna know what we're gonna do as a proactive body that's here to represent their interests, what our approach is gonna be, and how we're going to confront the county board of supervisors and the decision that they make.
Okay, well, that's my,
Do I have a second? That's the question.
that's my response to your question.
So no
So
second
now-
from anybody?
There is a motion and a second on the table. If there's additional discussion about future agenda items, let's take the vote that's on the table and then discuss future agenda items after.
I was just asking, so that's I'm just asking for a second on that one.
We should be
Not a
discussing the
discussion, just to
motion.
ask to put it on the agenda.
We should be discussing the motion and the second that's on the table right now, and then once that's done, we can discuss the future agenda items.
So we had a motion by Councilmember Gastel. Do we have a second by Councilmember Snow? Okay. City Clerk, would you call the vote?
The motion was made by Councilmember Castile with a second by Councilmember Snow to approve the consent calendar. I will now conduct the roll to go on the record. Councilmember Snow?
Aye.
Councilmember Castile?
Aye.
Councilmember LeBaron?
Councilmember LeBaron, aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Mendoza?
Aye.
The motion carries on a vote of 4-0-1.
And then my ask again is, do I have the support of anybody up here to support the community's ask that we put the sleeping cabins on the agenda so that it can be discussed what our position as their governing and representative body is going to be moving forward in regards to sleeping cabin? Do I have anybody's support in that?
And my response to that is, yes, we will do that when we hear the plan from the county.
Okay, so prior to hearing the plan, there's no agreement to put this on the agenda.
I'm saying no.
Okay, so we're waiting to hear again from the county. Okay, thank you.
If I can jump in, can
Yes, you may.
Yeah, it's a county proposal. The county is the agency that is in the process of developing plans, and it's the county that will be making the decision about the plans. And as a council, we would be able to respond, we would be able to comment on what the county is doing, but I think it's really important that this sort of discussion start with the county being taking the lead and saying how their proposal is developing. And I also think it's really important for us as council members to recognize that I mean, we can say whatever we want about the proposal, but it's not our proposal, and it's not gonna be our decision. And so I think it's really important that we hear the county and hear what their proposal is and make sure we understand their proposal. And then we would be free to comment on it. We could say that it's great, we could say that it's terrible. But it's really important that we understand first and foremost what the county is working on and where they are in the process, and what they have in mind. And then of course we'll be free to come up with a response to it if we think that's appropriate. I hope that clarifies.
You already gave your response. Snow already said yes. Mendoza already said yes. So did Vasquez.
Please, Mr. King, if you continue to speak, we'll have to ask you to leave.
What are you gonna do, Jennifer? What are you gonna do?
I'm gonna have to speak up. Can I speak up? I would like to have Ken King removed. I feel physically threatened.
Oh my God. Go plant a tree.
I think you.
Piece of shit. You're out of here, and you're out of here, and you're out of here.
And you're out of here.
Right up. Oh, fuck off.
I'm sorry, but we do not take questions from the audience. That's why we had to ask Mr. King to leave. If you want to fill out a speaker slip or something that's on the agenda, and I'm explaining that to everyone. We already took public comments. Mr. King made his public comment, and this isn't a back and forth between the audience. So thank you. Okay, the next item is public hearing item number 2 to consider appeal number AA2-200-0010 regarding the Planning Commission approval of CUP number 220-0001.
And at this time, because of quorum issues, we ask that the city council continue this item to the October 1st city council meeting, so we don't have any quorum issues related to this appeal hearing. All the notices will still stay valid, and we'll have a hearing at that time. I do need a vote from the city council to move this item to October 1 of 2024.
I just wanted to add one thing to what City Manager Romero just said, which is that we have 2 city council members that live within 500 feet of this proposed project, which would disqualify them from participating in the actual item. However, what we would like to do is open the public hearing and continue the matter so that at the next regularly scheduled meeting, we will have a quorum of 3 with the mayor present. It was not known in advance, far enough in advance of the meeting to make sure that this item was set at a later date when we thought we would have a quorum. So we're asking for the continuance of the council that's currently sitting here.
Yeah, well, obviously, we're missing the mayor, and then these 2 can't be here because they live too close to this project. So because the mayor did not show up to our regular
our meeting, right? We can't have this, we can't hear the public, so they're all here, and because she decided not to be here, well, we can't move forward. My opinion is that we not do anything with this today, because then the mayor isn't gonna have the advantage of listening to everything that's being said today. So I would just recommend that we don't even start it today, and that because she's absent, we have no choice. It's not like we're really choosing, we can't move forward, because there's only two of us, George and I, and there needs to be at least three of us to ever vote on something, so my recommendation would just continue the whole thing and don't start it today.
The reason we open the public hearing is so that for noticing procedures, we can just do it at the next regularly scheduled meeting. So all I would ask is that you open the public hearing, you take no evidence, you hear no staff reports, you just make a motion to continue, and then we'll move it to the next regularly scheduled meeting.
Gotcha, okay.
Where the two can recuse and the mayor will be here, hopefully.
Got you, yeah, okay, perfect,
Thank you.
yeah.
I move to open public hearing, so that we may be able to continue this matter to the next, scheduled meeting on October 1st, 2024.
I'll second.
Please call for the vote.
The motion was made by Councilmember Snow with a second by Councilmember Castillo. I'll now conduct the roll to go on the record. Councilmember Snow?
Aye.
Councilmember LeBaron?
Councilmember Barron, aye.
Councilmember Castillo?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Mendoza?
Aye.
Motion carries on a vote of 4-0-1.
And I just have to add something here. Sitting in the front row here was my neighbor and his little boy, who's friends with my grandson. They go to school together. This is probably the first time they've come to a public meeting. They came because they live near where the proposed cell tower is, I'm assuming, and they wanted to comment. I'm just embarrassed. I'm mortified, that this was their first experience of a Lemon Grove City Council meeting. And, I will be talking with them, and apologizing, but, this was, this is just devastating to me. So, let's move on with our meeting. Next, we have item number 3, public hearing to consider appeal number AA2-200-0010 regarding the Planning Commission approval of CUP number 220-0001. I'm sorry, I'm reading the wrong one. CUP-2400002 to renew a conditional use permit for an existing cannabis retail dispensary at 6859 Federal Boulevard in the general commercial zone. And we have a staff.
Mayor Pro Tem, Mr. Michael Fellows will be giving the initial staff report for this item.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor Pro Tem, Council. As mentioned, this item is for the renewal of a previously approved CUP for a dispensary, Wellgreens. The reason for this application is that the dispensary was approved with a condition of approval requiring that the CUP be renewed 3 years after establishment of the use. This condition has been added to all dispensaries that have been approved in Lemon Grove. The primary focus of a renewal application is on compliance with requirements found in CUP conditions of approval and the Lemon Grove Municipal Code. The renewal process is a tool that provides an opportunity to gauge the effectiveness of and need to potentially add or alter conditions of approval. The subject property is located at 6859 Federal Boulevard. This property is a rectangular shaped property, interior lot that is about 30,000 square feet in size. The property is developed with a two-story, 6,600 square foot building that includes a dispensary on the bottom floor and offices on the upper floor. The property is bordered by Federal Boulevard to the north, the Veterans of Foreign Wars VFW to the east, a commercial building, office building to the west, and residences across Cholas Creek on a hillside to the south. The dispensary was first approved by City Council on September 4th, 2018, as a medical marijuana dispensary. This was the second such approval in the city. This approval included a condition requiring that the CUP be renewed every 3 years upon establishment occupancy of the use. This is a standard condition of approval with all dispensaries. On August 21st, 2021, the dispensary received occupancy from the building department. On October 26, 2021, the dispensary was approved for adult use recreation sales and deliveries via MUP 2100006. This CUP renewal application was submitted on July 29, 2024 by the applicant, Sarmad Halak, on behalf of the owners of the dispensary, Federal and College Group Incorporated. This application was routed to the Sheriff's Department, Planning Department, Code Enforcement, and Heartland Fire for review. As part of the Sheriff Department's review, they provided all calls for service within the last 2 years. The calls included one incident involving an argument at the dispensary. The other calls were for either false alarms or incidents where the dispensary's address was only used for reference. There were no violations found or reported by any of the departments. A date, one thing to point out is that a date in the staff report specified an inspection occurred on September 24th. That was incorrect. The inspection was on September 9th. It wasn't conducted in the future. Here we have a front elevation of the dispensary as viewed from Federal Boulevard. Here's a view of the back of the building, along with a fenced off area that is going to be subject to a future request by the applicant. Or, later in this report, going to be requested by the applicant. This is a view from inside the retail store. And this view is of the trash enclosure area behind the dispensary, along with a view of Cholas Creek. As required by CUP 1800002 conditions, the dispensary operator always allows staff access to inspect the dispensary. Inspections determined that the property matches approved plans and that the second floor areas are not being used by the dispensary. The building facade and landscaping is well maintained. Uniform security was always present on the site. The security cameras were of high quality and operational. No customers were observed loitering inside of the facility or around the parking lot. Required signage was displayed around the property. There were no traffic or parking issues observed. The trash enclosure was of high quality and used for trash purposes. There were no food trucks, outdoor storage, or any other unapproved uses observed outside of the dispensary. Cholas Creek was cleared of obstructions. The applicant is requesting both renewal of the conditional use permit and modification to several conditions of approval required by CUP 1800002. Most of the requested changes are cleanup items to provide consistency between the original CUP that was issued and subsequent approvals. The applicant request pointed out that the business has complied with all state and local laws for its operation as a cannabis retail outlet, as well as conditions of approval of the CUP. The conditions include, but are not limited to, those related to the construction of the building at the site, the mitigated negative declaration related to the CUP, and the operation requirements, conditions. Request 1, Section 2, Condition G3, from the approved conditional use permit specifies that loading and unloading of cash is prohibited during business hours. The applicant has requested to modify this condition to allow it during business hours under supervision of a security guard. This condition had reflected state law that has since been changed to allow the loading and unloading during business hours. Request 2 is to modify condition G26, which limits activities to medical marijuana dispensaries only. The applicant is requesting this modification to clarify that the permitted accessory uses are allowed and that adult use recreation cannabis sales and deliveries may be permitted with separate city approval. Staff considers this a cleanup item since the permitted uses are allowed at the property and this location has already received a separate MUP minor use permit approval for adult use recreation cannabis sales and deliveries. The location's already been approved for adult use and deliveries. Request 3 is modification to condition G27 that prohibits deliveries from the facility except for by qualified patients and primary caregiver that is reasonably related to medical needs. The applicant is requesting that this condition be modified to specify that deliveries from the facility shall be permitted in compliance with state law and chapter 17.32 of the city's municipal code and any successor provisions. Staff considers this a cleanup item because adult recreation deliveries are already approved and delivery limitations specified in this condition are no longer applicable. Request 4, condition modification to condition G43 specifies hours of operation restricted between 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. 7 days a week. The applicant is requesting modification to this condition that the hours of operation be set forth as in the municipal code that specifies from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. or as specified in the conditional use permit. Staff considers this a cleanup item since the dispensary was approved to operate from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. when it was approved for adult use recreation sales. Request 7 is a modification, Request 7, Section 2, limited the business to the approved site plan and that was associated with the approved CUP. This approved site plan showed a 7-foot high gated fence that was used as a secure area for cannabis delivery. The applicant is requesting approval to remove this fence. They stated that many distributors' vehicles cannot fit inside it and that cars have backed into it. Staff has no objection to the removal of the fence. Request number 8 is for modification related to Section 2. That stated Section 2, neither the original CUP nor the adult MUP approved on-site curb delivery. Let me clarify that change. Is that neither of essentially the applicant is requesting curbside delivery. They've explained that customers place an online order, park in a numbered parking space, then click a link when they arrive. An employee will then bring the product to the customer. The applicant says that this transaction will be monitored by a camera and that the state has strict requirements on it. The applicant is available if council would like more information. It is important to note that curbside delivery was discussed and approved as part of the competing dispensary during their renewal process. In conclusion, the dispensary has complied with the conditions of approval. Their operator has been responsive and has not had any code violations. The Sheriff's Department and planning staff have reviewed the renewal request and proposed changes to have no the proposed changes have no objection to them. The proposed changes are included with the attached resolution. CUP findings are not required for this renewal since the findings were made with the original approval. One item to note is that the city clerk provided a revised resolution that corrected condition 1 to specify the renewal would be approved until August 21st, 2024. Staff's recommendation is to adopt a resolution approving CUP number CUP 240002, a renewal of CUP 180002, located at 6859 Federal Boulevard. This concludes staff's presentation. Staff is available for questions.
Mr. Fellows, we've all read this, but did you skip the slide that had 5 and 6 on it? I think you went from 4 to 7. So just for the sake of the audience who may not have read all of this, could you just go over those 2 conditions also?
That's for request 5 and 6?
5 and 6, yeah. So we are listening to you.
Request 5, condition G68, all activities involving the transportation of marijuana or dispensary shall comply with California state regulations, restrictions, and guidelines as enumerated in Division 8, Chapter 3.5 of the California Business and Professions Code, and established by the Bureau of Medical Marijuana Regulations. The applicant is requesting changes to reflect updates in the state law since the CUP was issued. This includes updating the department name and reflecting renumbering of applicable sections. Staff considers this a cleanup item. And then request number 6, section D, specifies that occupancy of the second floor shall consist of professional offices only operated by the proprietor. All other land uses shall require a conditional use permit modification. The applicant is requesting modification of this condition to allow offices only, and that no cannabis products shall be stored and the offices are not open to the public. The applicant has indicated they would like to change this change to operate the corporate offices of Wellgreens in the upper floor of the building. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I just wanted to back up for just a second. City clerk, have all notices required by law been given and has the complete file of exhibits, correspondence, and other documents been provided?
Mayor Pro Tem Mendoza, all notices have been provided as required by law, and the complete file of documents, exhibits, and corresponding documents are on file with the city clerk's office.
And then I'm gonna turn it over to the city attorney, to ask council if, we have any disclosures or conflict of interest regarding this item.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Mendoza. I'll just go one by one and ask if the council has any conflicts of interest or ex parte communications that need to be disclosed at this time. And I'll start with Council Member LeBaron.
I have nothing to disclose, thank you.
Thank you. Council Member Snow?
No conflicts of interest and no ex parte disclosures.
Thank you. Council Member Gaston?
No conflicts or disclosures.
Thank you. And Mayor Pro Tem Mendoza?
I have none, to report as well.
Thank you.
Okay, now that that's out of the way, I'm gonna call on, Jessica McElfresh, who's the attorney for the applicant. You have 15 minutes to make your presentation. You don't have to take.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, great. Yes, I'm Jessica McElfresh. I'm an attorney representing the applicant here. I do not really have a presentation. I really wanted to, I already did all of my dialoguing with Mr. Fellows. Hopefully he's still okay. And I'm just merely here to take any questions of staff if there are. Thank you.
If you, maybe just could stay up here and then I'll give council members an opportunity to ask you any questions if they have some, and then you can answer them in the mic, into the mic. Okay, I'll start with Councilmember LeBaron. You have, 2 questions, for this round of questions for the applicant. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Miss Jessica, okay, so your client, if I'm understanding this correctly, your client is asking that modifications be made to the conditional use permit, correct?
Yes, there's a series of modifications. Most of them are, I agree with Mr. Fellows in the cleanup category. This CUP was originally drafted in 2018. Since then, we've had numerous changes in state law, including the numbering of every single state law section cited. So that's the overwhelming majority of them. And then some others were requesting cleanup merely because there have been later approvals, primarily the minor use permit that allowed for adult use, delivery, the hours, etc. And it just sort of offends my sense as a lawyer to read something that says I can't do something that I know I can. So we're simply trying to make it consistent with what is currently permitted so that basically it's clear. It's not uncommon for the passage of time.
It's my understanding that one of the modifications that your client is asking for is for there to be curbside delivery on the street, which, according to what you just said, is something that is permitted per state law.
Well, a few clarifications. Curbside delivery is permitted within the parking lot. It is now permitted under state law. That was something that began to become a thing under state law during the pandemic and is now formally in our rules and regulations for the state.
Got you. So since I didn't get to ask a question, the second one would be, thank you for that. If the curbside delivery would be happening inside of the parking lot?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, normal delivery goes to homes, the vehicle leaves, goes to customers, comes back again. Curbside occurs in the parking lot.
Yeah, someone pulls up, staff from the store comes out with the product and gives it to the person.
If you bought anything at any retail store during the COVID-19 pandemic, you have experienced curbside delivery. Yes.
Yeah, okay. I needed to know the specifics because there's, that street is very dangerous, so I wanted to make sure that there's not gonna be curbside. Well, I have concerns, that there would be curbside delivery happening on Federal, which would not be a good idea for our community, but now you've clarified. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Snow, do you have any questions?
Yeah, one of the issues I have is the advertising directed towards children, and you guys decided to put up a giant billboard advertising discounts on the first purchase. Is this loud enough? So just to recap a little bit, so it's on the record. I have big issues with trying to keep this controlled substance out of the hands of kids. I have a big concern about that. And putting up large billboards along our freeways where I have to travel to take my kids to school every day is a big concern to me. I will urge my council, it's obvious that these statutes and ordinances need updates. We asked for this it's been almost a year since the last one came before us, and we still haven't made any movement on reviewing these ordinances. I am not particularly inclined to grant the request just because I want to do it as part of an overall package that applies to all of the dispensaries and not singling out one or two at a time and trying to have one thing applied to one dispensary and another thing applied to another dispensary. So I would encourage that this be something that comes before us pretty darn quickly, especially because it's I sent over proposed regulations probably about 10 months ago. So really moving that up, I'm sure equity among these different ones, but one of the big issues I had was making sure that there aren't big billboards advertising fruity flavors to entice our children along the freeway. So what's your commitment to making sure that this stays out of the hands of kids, and what is Wellgreens doing specifically to make sure that this doesn't get into our kids' hands?
They're complying with state law. And I can appreciate your position on the billboard, and I will give you more specific answers as to what they're doing, but on the billboards, I can respect your view. However, and I haven't seen what you proposed, and if I had, I'd be able to possibly comment on it or engage in dialogue on it, but unfortunately I haven't, so I cannot do that. I will say that generally, the billboards and the advertising regulations and all those sorts of things have primarily been set by the state of California and are in state law as well as state regulations. Any and all complaints that somebody may have about them, anybody, are submitted to the state. But if there are aspects of the state laws that you as a council member or as an individual have concerns about, that would probably be the most effective venue. Because even if hypothetically Lemon Grove were to pass something that contained restrictions, that's not going to stop the dispensaries in La Mesa, Chula Vista, Santee, the city of San Diego, and soon the unincorporated area of the county from putting up those same billboards.
Yeah, I'm all for at least taking care of Lemon Grove. So we made the same request for commitment from the other dispensary that came before us. But I really want to know, like, what are you going to do when you've asked for an exception and your people can just drive up? And what are you doing to screen? What are you doing to make sure that these transactions are safe? What do you have in place? The other one came to us with a lot of facts and information. We do not have that before us. I don't know what you guys are doing specifically, and telling me that you comply with state law is not what I want to hear right now. I want to know what Wellgreens specifically is doing to make sure that a 16-year-old can't drive up there, doesn't have a medical marijuana dispensary permit, what you're doing to make sure it's 21 and over. Because I can access your website right now, and I just have to click a little thing. Excuse me, I'm a council member. You don't want to interrupt me. So I can click on here and it says I certify that I'm 21 and older. That's all I had to do was click a little button. So let me know exactly what you're doing to make sure that this isn't getting into our kids' hands.
I listened to the earlier hearing, so I am aware of the dialogue that occurred during it. In terms of, we do exactly what that other dispensary does, as is required by state law. You're correct, you can click the button there. However, if you were to place an order, you would have to provide a copy of your ID. That way we would know that you are over 21 years of age. In terms of when people show up for their curbside delivery, as is required by state law, as in all other jurisdictions, what people do then is the car comes in, they use a texting system typically to alert the staff that they are there. Staff comes out, they verify that the ID is valid, that it matches the person who placed the order, and that they are of over age 21 in that manner. That's how we address it for curbside delivery. I got a little confused because you were asking about the billboards and I didn't make the connection to the curbside in your question, I'm sorry.
Thank you. Councilmember Gaston?
Yeah, I think the staff report is remarkably thorough in the response from the dispensary, or you can see it the other way, of the staff responding to the dispensary. It goes both ways, I think is remarkably thorough. I share Councilmember Snow's concern, though I think my question would be about whether the concern about young people is related to the CUP discussion and what how those two would be connected or should be connected isn't completely clear to me. So I don't know if anybody wants to comment on that, because I totally hear the concern, but I wasn't sure that that's a consideration. That I wasn't sure where it connects with the COP discussion.
Speaking more generally, in terms of any attempts that the city is making to adjust rules, to change them, to have a commitment among the businesses, obviously we are interested in participating in that. We were the second dispensary to open in the city. We rebuilt the entire building, and we really consider it to be in many ways our base of operations at our home. We operate a variety of stores, but this is the one where we want to have our corporate offices, by way of example. The ownership does live locally, and one is a very devoted parent. So I do appreciate the concerns you're raising, and I also appreciate wanting to have them be equitable parity among the stores. I think that's a very reasonable point. And in terms of any other specific measures, we're clearly happy to talk about what we do.
I think that's all I had.
Yeah, I've been very active in, bringing the tobacco retail licensing, ordinance to our city. And, now we're looking at trying to strengthen that, so I have a big interest in keeping, this out of the hands of our youth as well. But one question I'm just like not really clear on, when, you know, when this was all first coming about, medical marijuana was available to 18 and up, okay? But now recreational marijuana, you have to be 21 and over. So, that relates to request number 2, I think. So, will the business be doing medical marijuana and recreational?
Well, yes, as they're currently permitted to do under state law and the current.
So you have
commission.
some, sorry to interrupt you, but so you have some, and I call them kids, even though when you're 18, you are officially an adult. But, so you have some 18-year-olds coming to get medical marijuana, but then if they don't have the medical marijuana license, then they have to get, they can get recreational marijuana, but showing, either way, everyone's showing their ID.
Yes, ma'am. Definitely everyone shows ID. ID is verified through scanners to guard against, fake IDs. Not really an issue at dispensaries for that reason, but we certainly can all remember them being issues at various bars or liquor stores or other things. But no, the IDs are all verified for everyone. In terms of that, I think, maybe your question about people being from 18 to 21, and I know this doesn't make me popular when I say it, but that is another one of those issues that really stems from California state law. Technically, in California, you can be a qualified patient at any age. They're thankfully extremely rare, but for example, young children suffering from Dravet syndrome, which responds extremely well to being treated with certain types of cannabis products, they can have a recommendation at a very young age. That's usually done in a very studied and careful manner with their doctor and their parent serves as their primary caregiver. However, under state law, the state has made the decision that people can be an adult for medical cannabis purposes from age 18 onward. They do have to obtain a recommendation from a licensed physician. And when those people come in, who I will be honest with you are actually pretty rare now, they have to not only have their identification verified, they also have to have the recommendation verified as valid. And that often involves checking to make sure that the physician still has their ability to practice in California.
Yeah, that's always been my concern, is that 18 to 21, as a parent. Okay, thank you. Do we have any other questions, council members, for the applicant?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Jessica, can you just put in layman's terms, not legal terms, layman's terms, so that we can all understand very clearly? Your client is requesting a modification titled Request 5 and modification titled Request 6. What are they asking for in Request 5?
Yeah, that one is a lot, isn't it? It's actually a parrot of the existing condition. I did not change much of the actual language there, other than say, for example, to change the word marijuana to cannabis. And also we are basically updating outdated references to state law, as well as a bureau that no longer exists to a department that does. We are also adding, again, because of the local permission we received under the minor use permit a few years ago, that basically any deliveries, by which I do not mean the curbside, by the way, I mean the deliveries where the vehicle leaves and goes to someone's house and comes back again, will follow state law as well as local law.
Okay, so how is that changing? I'm sorry,
It's not changing, other than the fact that I don't want to cite to outdated sections and a department that doesn't exist. It's pretty much the same.
Okay, so request 5, you're asking that the city update the language that the city is using currently to take the word marijuana and change it to the word cannabis.
And to cease referring to a section of the Business and Professions Code that has been renumbered to what it is now currently renumbered.
Concerning deliveries.
Concerning cannabis, actually. It was real fun for me too, but they had everything in one division and then they moved it to a whole other one, and I had to renumber and rewrite everything I'd ever written that referred to these laws.
And then request number 6, if you could put that very simply, so that we can all understand, what is your client asking for in request number 6?
We're simply asking to clarify that the second floor can be offices and can remain offices. The earlier condition basically stated that it could be offices, but it could not be offices that were associated with the tenant on the first floor. That's the difference.
So, the original
Yeah.
approval made it so that it's a 2-story building. Your client has a 2-story building. Wellgreens is in a 2-story building. The bottom level sells marijuana products, cannabis products. And then the top level, it's just office space. But the city has told your client that your client can't use that office space above them for their cannabis business. Is that correct to say?
They couldn't use it for any purpose. I want to be abundantly clear. No one is talking about putting any cannabis products, storage, anything else. We are literally talking about people sitting at computers and doing payroll that does not involve cash anymore, and looking in marketing and other things. I mean, it's about as corporate and boring as it could possibly be.
Yeah, but prior to answer my question, the city said that your client could not use that top level to do what you just said, payroll, anything associated with cannabis selling that was happening down below.
It was an unusual condition.
Thank you. And then I'll have a question for staff regarding that. Councilmember Snow?
Do they have remote scanners for the curbside and for the deliveries?
Yes.
And do they videotape, do they have cameras and stuff that are videotaping people at the delivery stage and at the curbside?
Curbside stage, yes. The entire parking lot is wired for sound, so to speak. Both from a security perspective and also to comply with the curbside requirements. Delivery at somebody's home, while sometimes there is video inside of the vehicle to monitor the driver or in the event of an accident, kind of like being in an Uber, no, they do not show up at somebody's home and videotape them during that process. That's not required under state law and would be a little unusual. But they do, of course, verify the ID, they do take photos, the customer has to sign, and there's extensive procedures in it that I'd be happy to share with your office in both state law and our operations.
So what are you taking photos of then?
The ID.
And not of the person to match and corroborate that the information, like your delivery driver is, because you're also asking for gives on who the delivery drivers can be. And so.
I'm sorry, I don't understand that.
You're
asking for gives on who the delivery drivers can be?
Yeah, you're making a request for a change in the type of delivery driver that's permitted to bring stuff to people's house.
No, to the best of my knowledge, I'm not.
Make sure I understand. In request 3, there's a modification.
Oh, okay, sure. I see what you mean. Okay, so to clarify, the reason why I don't view that as a change is we're already permitted to do delivery in compliance with state law under the minor use permit that the city approved a few years ago. So that's why, in my mind, there's no change. In terms of the language that you are seeing there, that is an artifact of a much earlier time where basically we were trying to avoid a situation. Initially, Lemon Grove did not allow delivery. initially, and then eventually they made that change, hence we got the minor use permit. This language was really designed to prevent something that I don't think anybody ever intended, which was basically like that parent I talked about with the hypothetical child with the seizure disorder. We would not want to inadvertently have a local law that prohibited the parent from picking it up and taking it home in that context.
That's the last question I have for her.
I don't have anything.
Yeah, I think that's all the questions that I had for you. So thank you very much. Okay. Okay, before we ask questions of staff, we're going to have public comment. So, Mr. John L. Wood.
John Elwood. My main concern is the traffic on Federal Boulevard is mostly heavy trucks. And you'll have people turning across the full width of Federal going into and out of the dispensary. Currently, there's been no problems, but they're just going into park. People now will be going in to pick up in the parking lot. And I really don't believe it's that safe because of the heavy trucks that go back and forth all day long and half the night. So you have to have some way to control the people pulling into the parking lot to pick up their stuff. Otherwise, you're definitely going to have a problem of some sort. Trucks running into each other, stuff like that. But my main concern is the congestion that could be made from people turning in and going out of the dispensary. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wood. So I'm going to ask, before we ask staff any questions, I'm going to ask Mr. Fellows, could you address Mr. Wood's concern? And that was on the curbside delivery, which I think was condition number 8. Or requested change number 8.
The curbside delivery wouldn't occur at the curb itself. Ultimately, it would occur within the parking lot. And on arrival, someone will alert the dispensary that they're at the site, and the operator would then bring out the product. Ultimately, we don't anticipate any traffic impacts due to that.
Is there already curbside pickup at the, so it's already happening, it is already happening?
It was brought to our attention by the dispensary that they believed that they were already approved to do it, because they had been approved for off-site delivery. So we clarified that they weren't approved for the on-site, which is why they included it as part of this request.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, Council Member LeBaron, you have some questions for staff?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Mendoza. Actually, now after hearing Mr. Elwood, who gave his public comment, he lives in the area, and then I'm familiar with that area, car dealership there, the traffic that, or the speeding that happens, the dangerous driving situation on that road. And crazy driving on Federal in that area. So I'll ask this, or I'll say this. So I've noticed that, you know, the city is a business, it's ran like a business, or it should be, right? A well-oiled machine. People say Hall should be very friendly, they should be very helpful with all the different people who are coming in to do business with us, right? That's in the best interest to residents. I do notice that when it comes to certain projects, it seems like the city is very picky on some projects over other, depending on whether the city is favorable to that project or not, or wants that project in the city or not. Sometimes it will require things like traffic studies. Now, there is a genuine traffic driving issue on Federal. It's a one-way that way and a one-way this way with a center median, which people use that center median to speed around other cars and to drive crazy and erratically. I've seen this. So this is what happens on Federal. It's a street that gets driven kind of like NASCAR racer. So, Mr. Elwood raised valid concerns about there being traffic issues, and in spite of the fact that deliveries will happen in the parking lot, that means now that there's gonna be one less parking space. The number of parking spaces are minimal. I've seen how traffic does pile up at the business, and that's good. Business is booming, I suppose, so that's great. For Wellgreens owners, there's a lot of patrons that go, and that does cause a backup in that area on Federal. I've seen it, so I'm not speculating, I've seen this happen. That said, knowing that sometimes we require traffic studies for projects in maybe less dangerous areas, why is city staff not requiring a traffic study be done for this?
I will take that question, Councilmember LeBaron, and the reason why is we're not looking at a land use entitlement. We usually do parking studies for new land use and new land use entitlements. What we're here today is just looking at modifying conditions. So there's two different thresholds. That's why we're not asking for a traffic study, because they're just modifying conditions of a current conditional use permit in which they were permitted to go in 5 years ago, I believe, 4 years ago. That's why no traffic study was asked for.
Gotcha, okay. I'm certain that the city obviously has discretion to require traffic studies in areas that are notoriously dangerous. So even though it's maybe not a new land use entitlement issue, I'm assuming that's something that the city could impose on this business, given that it's gonna now modify the traffic flow in that area and it's a dangerous area.
No, we would have already done a traffic study, and you only do traffic studies when you're adding new businesses to town. This is not a new business, it's an existing business, and we're just looking at the conditions. Now, the council can certainly say, no, we won't have any curbside service, which means nobody will park in, and like you can do at Target or any other stores. You guys can say no to that condition. That's what we're here today, is to look at the conditions. But the underlying traffic study that was done at the previous land use entitlement continually stays. It doesn't change because they're not changing their land use, which is a marijuana store or a cannabis store.
Gotcha.
Now, if you turn to a movie theater, we certainly would do a traffic study, but they're not proposing that.
Okay, still doesn't make sense. I mean, I'm sure legally we can require that they do a traffic study, because while the business is not changing, their business, the way that their business is operating is changing, and that by consequence is gonna change the traffic flow in that area. So logic would tell me that we could require that they do a traffic study, and that be a information that this council uses in order to grant them their ask of now being allowed to do curbside. So I appreciate your input, however, I don't necessarily feel it's 100% accurate, and it's far-fetched for a governing body to ask that one be done, especially when it's gonna be modifying the traffic flow in a notorious dangerous area. All right, well, that said, another question, can you clarify request number 6? So originally, Wellgreens was not allowed to have two-story building. Their top story was not allowed to be used for anything that had to do with the business down below. Why was that? Can you shed light on that? Now they're asking to use it for office space, just for
Councilmember, I wasn't here when the original permit was processed, so I don't have full background on that.
Okay, well, Lydia, so she was here, the city attorney was here, so thank you though.
I honestly don't remember the machination of this one, and it could have come from the public hearing itself, or if staff did it itself, but what I do know, the intent was originally not to have cannabis on the second floor, everything was supposed to be located on the first floor. And I believe what they're asking now is allow us to let them have their corporate office space upstairs.
Thank you. That's all, thank you.
Councilmember Snow?
On request number 2, can you explain what the additional permitted accessory uses are going to be and how that would expand what's existing there?
I know you are staff, but you're referring to condition 2 where the proposed is that business activities will be limited to medical marijuana and permitted accessory uses, and you're trying to ask what the accessory uses would be?
Yes.
That would be, in this exact scenario, accessory uses would be the adult use and delivery permitted under the minor use permit. Accessory uses is a land use term used in Lemon Grove. It does not refer to smoking accessories. So I believe that's what the accessory uses would be, the delivery and the adult use.
I need staff to tell me,
Yeah.
this is a question for staff and our city attorney, what is this?
I can-
Councilmember, so that is absolutely correct. And that's what we were trying to do, because we were trying to marry the minor use permit when the city council allowed recreation. It's not, they're not gonna have outside events, they're not gonna have booths. It's really just to marry both the minor use permit that allowed recreation marijuana that this council passed some time ago, in 21, I believe, 21. And that's all it is.
And I'll add a little bit to that too, is that accessory uses that are permitted in the zone are allowed automatically without this change. And what, the specifics coming to mind, ultimately because there's limitations on the site plan and everything else, there's nothing that, even a parking space could be considered accessory to the primary building. So it's really a clarification item because a trash enclosure is accessory to the permitted use. And so even without that condition changing, accessory uses that are permitted are allowed. It's more just a clarification, so it's not just limited to the primary use.
I'm not sure I understand. I appreciate staffing and.
Can I chime in? It conforms with the code. It's just a measure that says this property can be used for what is allowed under the code. And so I think the more extensive answer that was given is, and maybe the more limited version that was given by the applicant is that it's not gonna turn into a place where it's gonna be a smoking lounge. That's not allowed in the code. But what will be allowed is recreational sales because that's allowed in the code, and it's already allowed, so they're doing it. It's just conforming the permit to what is current law.
And then why is there a separate second sentence that says adult use and recreational cannabis sales and deliveries may be permitted with separate city approval in the already permitted? I'm confused.
I'd look to Michael Fellows for that.
I can add that. The applicant's initial request was to specify in this condition that adult use is permitted. However, because this conditional use permit that we are modifying was specifically limited to medical marijuana, we had a discussion and ultimately they modified their request. We didn't want to say that adult use is permitted by this conditional use permit because adult use was permitted by the minor use permit. So then we just modified that request to specify that it can be permitted with a minor use permit or with a separate permit because they already have the minor use permit. So it's really, that's where it's just really a cleanup item because that's how the code essentially works and how the conditions work already without the change occurring.
I think that, if we do approve that request, that we'll have to clean it up because it says may be permitted, and we should reflect that it has been permitted, by separate city approval. Yeah.
Because I think in theory, the adult use could be revoked, the minor use permit could in theory be revoked if there were significant violations while the medicinal remained in place. So that was part of why we kept that separate.
That change is easy to make, we can include it.
They hadn't been approved for curbside delivery, but they were doing curbside delivery, did I hear that right? They were not doing curbside delivery? Okay, good. For the, when they can load and unload cash and cannabis, can you tell us a little bit more about the wisdom about prohibiting that during business hours, and why we would like to reduce that to just under supervision of a licensed security guard?
I believe we need to have the applicant share why that condition was asked for and changed.
Actually, I wanted to know why are we considering it, why is staff recommending this? I understand why they want to do it.
My understanding is that this was based on the state law at the time that this conditional use permit was approved, and that the state law has since changed. And that as part of the request, we routed the application to the sheriff's department to see if they had any concerns about occurring during different hours. The sheriff's department expressed no concern about it, and so we didn't see a reason why we would be concerned about it either.
Councilmember Gaston?
I just have one question here, and forgive me if somebody addressed this, but we were talking about curbside, which means parking lot service, and we were talking about traffic flow, and I understand that there's a certain time and a certain, process for when we do traffic studies, but I did want to clarify, just for my own understanding, do we think that curbside service, service in the parking lot, if that's allowed, that would in fact impact traffic flow on the street? And forgive me if somebody addressed this already, but do we think that one thing relates to the other?
Staff wouldn't anticipate an increase in traffic because of that. Ultimately, there's a lot of businesses now that have pickup, and generally it's an alternative versus going in the store versus not. I think there's potential for reduction because customers may be quicker when a customer comes out, brings them to them, rather than when they have to give an ID, go through the security, and then enter the dispensary. It actually might be a quicker service than what would be if they were parking there. And ultimately, we wouldn't anticipate any change in the traffic demands related to that change in the conditional use permit.
I think that answers my question. I'm no traffic expert, but just my horse sense tells me that it's the same number of people that would be coming to the dispensary, and perhaps the parking lot would be a little bit more busy, but I'm not sure why the street would be more busy, but thank you, that is helpful.
Well, you asked and you answered my question. Although I had one other question. I don't think you, it was on our presentation, but I think it was in the staff report that the Choice Creek runs behind the business, and that our staff report mentioned that the creek is being kept clear. And so I just wanted to confirm that staff is checking on that on a regular basis. And that I'm thinking of you, Mr. Wood, because that was a condition of, the CUP. So, we've heard from Mr. Wood a lot on this issue, and I just wanna make sure that staff is, regularly checking this and making sure we're keeping that creek clear.
I've conducted 4 inspections of the dispensary. I've personally gone out on each one of the compliance inspections of the dispensary, and each time I was out there, I made, I made an effort to take a look at the creek. For that reason, I specifically included a photo of the creek in this situation, to show it was of importance to us, and included that mention in the staff report intentionally too. And each time within the limits of the property boundary for the dispensary, each time I've been out there, it's been clear.
Okay, thank you. Okay, do we have, I think we've gone through several rounds of questions. Anybody have any final burning questions for staff or the applicant? Yes, Councilmember Snow.
For the proposed office space, how many parking spots will be dedicated to those? How many parking spaces are there? How many parking spaces will be allotted to the upstairs office? And how many people are going to be in those offices? How many workers are going to be there? And what is that building all look like?
From a code requirement perspective, we actually don't get into how spaces are allocated on the property. We only look at a total number for the building. So how those spaces are allocated would actually be up based on how the applicant proposes to allocate.
The rest of the questions?
I don't know exactly how many, but yes, it was permitted originally when we got the conditional use permit for the retail and accommodating office uses on the second floor. So it would be consistent with what was originally allotted. Day to day, I think that there's probably 2 or 3 people in there, most days, a couple more people in and out for say like the HR meetings, such as that. And I will say that any business tends to prioritize above all parking for customers for a fairly obvious reason. So I think if basically we were having some employee issues, people would be given passes, encouraged to carpool. The standard measures, I think, most businesses take in those situations.
And when that fenced-in area is taken away, is that going to improve the parking situation?
Oh, yes. The fenced-in area has not been a very successful thing because unfortunately a lot of people who are trying to use the lot, customers, they tend to back their car up into it. And that's why we're asking to have it removed. It's not really serving any purpose other than to damage customer vehicles, and that's not a good purpose.
Thank you. Councilmember O'Brien?
I'm sorry, I wasn't following it. The applicant is also, or I'm sorry, that the business owners are also asking that certain fencing be taken down. I'm looking at a picture of your client's business. Where is this fencing gonna be taken down?
It's in the back. There was actually a photograph of it in the staff presentation. It's in the back. It's not at the front. It's not the gate that controls access to the gate, to the parking lot itself or around the exterior. It's like a little jail for the staircase, actually. I think there may be a photo in the packet. And that's what we're proposing to take down because I'm not joking, people back into it all the time.
So that means you're removing fencing that's dividing your client's business from homes that are in the back.
No, ma'am, that's not the case. The fence in the rear will absolutely be remaining. There is a photo of it, it's hard to describe unless you look at it, but I'm not joking, it's basically a fence around the staircase attached to the building.
Oh,
Yeah, not the back. I know it's in there. There it is. All right, it's the upper left, and then there. That is not, as you can see, that is at the rear of the building, and it's attractive nuisance. It's not very attractive, but all it has really done is make it hard for people to drive in the park. It does not serve any other purpose.
All right, anyone else? Can we close the public hearing? Thank you.
Second?
City Clerk?
The motion was made by Councilmember Gastillo to close the public hearing with a second by Councilmember Snow. I will now conduct the roll to go on the record. Councilmember LeBaron.
Thank you, Joel. What I think we are all witnessing here tonight is a lot of collaborating and working together with this particular business. Councilmember LeBaron, we're just closing the public hearing right now. I will give you an opportunity to deliberate once the, sorry,
Yes.
sorry, I apologize for interrupting you.
No, you're not, just
Yes.
say
I
that.
vote yes.
Say that.
My apologies.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
Councilmember Snow.
Aye.
Councilmember Gastillo.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Mendoza.
Aye.
The motion carries on a vote of 4-0-1.
Okay, now we're going to deliberate, so we can start with Councilmember LeBaron.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Mendoza. What I think, I was saying, is what I think we're witnessing here tonight, or not what I think, what we are witnessing here tonight is a lot of collaborating and working together with this particular business, which I think is amazing. That is how we should be doing business with everybody. It's my hope moving forward, seeing how servicial, how helpful, how collaborative city staff has been with this particular business. It's my hope that that's the way that city staff is with all businesses within our city, because the reports that I get from business owners is that that is not how they're received. They're not being helped. City staff is not necessarily very helpful or servicial. They're not very collaborative, and that affects the welfare of our city. That affects how our downtown looks. That has negative consequences for all the residents in the city. So what I will say again is, I'm happy to see that the city has been particular with this cannabis business, these business owners and their attorney. That's great, awesome. Let's now duplicate that and make it that way with all of our businesses. That's my comment.
Thank you, that's a great idea. Councilmember Snow?
I had mentioned this previously, but I just wanted to reiterate here that I think it's really time that we take a look at our ordinances related to cannabis and marijuana, and that we really try to make sure that it equally applies to all the different agencies involved. So some of my comments on the proposed resolution will be impacted by that, because I'm not really inclined to change it for just one, but I'm looking forward to changing it for all. I think we need better protections in place for kids. I'm not super keen on the idea that people can get deliveries and there's just a copy of an ID, no copy of the matching person to the ID or anything else. And having been a teenager, IDs are easy to come by. So I'd really like to see something stricter in the proposed regulations going forward. That doesn't have anything to do with this right now, but just on the wish list for what's coming forward. I am inclined on the requests for, in the proposed resolution, in number 3 to approve, number 4 to approve, 5 to approve, 6 is a cleanup, 7 is a cleanup, and I would say let's hold off on granting those until they're consistent for everyone. On 8, I agree to occupancy on the second floor shall consist of offices only, but it says that cannabis, the only limitation is that cannabis and cannabis products shall not be stored on the second floor. I want no cannabis there at all, ever, for any reason, not just for storage limitation. And then on number 9, I am number 9, I still have deep concerns about including curbside delivery, so I'm still thinking about that. Just waiting on why they need to have curbside delivery since we're not in the COVID pandemic. And we're not in the COVID pandemic anymore. There's far more protections in place. They've done an incredible security, and there's lots of cameras and everything to make sure that everything's done and kosher and just safe. And I want those additional security measures to apply to everybody. I know I've already expressed that I have issues with the delivery, but I would prefer not to have cannabis be provided in the parking lot. I think it just asks for problems, and I think they have and spent a lot of money on getting those protections in place in the store, and I don't think it's that big of a hardship to have to come out.
We're gonna need to, discuss these. So, we're looking at the resolution and not at the step, correct? You're referring to the resolution?
Yeah.
Okay. So, number three was loading and unloading of cash and cannabis during business hours is permitted, so long as conducted under the supervision. And I'm sorry to kind of leap ahead of you, but I just want to make sure you got everything that she said down. So you're okay with that?
Yes.
Okay. And then 4, the accessory shall be limited to medical and permitted accessory uses. Adult use, recreational cannabis sales and deliveries may be permitted with separate city approval. Although you have, is that the one you suggested rewording?
No, I understand why they worded it the way they did.
Okay.
And so I'm okay with the current language.
Okay, and you said 5, deliveries from the facility shall be permitted in compliance with state law. That's okay. And
Councilmember Snow, please speak into your microphone.
okay, and number 6, the hours of operation, we're okay with that?
So I wanted that to be consistent for all. I recognize that we may not get this done in a timely manner, and I don't want them to be prejudiced because the other dispensaries are able to operate with extended hours. But, you know, we need to be consistent all the way through on how we're applying it to all of these. So right now I'm saying I would rather not approve this and that we just do it wholesale for all of them. But if this is something that's not gonna come before us until January or February, then I would be okay with doing it now.
And Councilmember Snow, based on staff workload, we're not gonna get an ordinance redone to you in the next 2 meetings. That would be virtually impossible. And really, it's up to the the businesses to tell us what their timeframes are. So this is actually consistent, or will be consistent with what we currently have, both in the recreational adult use as well as the medical use of hours of operation.
Okay.
Okay. Well,
my thoughts are that if it's the opinion of the council to have these things ordinance drafted up that's cohesive and it applies to all the cannabis dispensaries versus piecemealing it and approving this, if that's the desire of the council, then staff is gonna work on it and they're gonna have it done at a time on which we agree. Perhaps it might not be in 2 weeks. What month are we? We're September. I'm sure this can get done within the next 2 months or 3 months prior to January. And even if it took to January, our concern, our like number one concern as council members isn't, I mean, with all due respect, this is your business. Our concern is that we're doing things properly. I mean, of course, any business is gonna say, I want this decided on right now. Of course, that's in their best interest, like, obviously. It's within our best interest as a governing body to do things properly. So if that means it, I mean, if we want to, we don't have to agree to any of this stuff. I mean, that's why we're here. They're asking this stuff of us. We don't have to grant any of this stuff. We can do what is our pleasure as a council majority.
Okay, I totally get what you're saying, and I think you're right. You know, we need to be fair. And, but we only have 2 businesses open right now.
Yeah.
And the other business is, they're able to be open from, 8 a.m. to 10 p.m.? No. 6 a.m. So we're not creating something that's unfair to any other businesses. But what Councilmember Snow is saying is going forward, what's good for these 2 that are now open and operating, we want that to be. And I think you're gonna agree with that too.
She's suggesting that we
that
make
to be
cohesive rules and that we not
consistent.
grant this right now for them, that we, before we grant anything, that we just create cohesive rules. I mean, correct me if I'm mistaken, but that's my understanding of what you're asking for, that we create a cohesive ordinance prior to anything. That's what I'm understanding. Am I correct or mistaken?
So ideally, I would like to do that, but I think that, if we don't approve some of these now, their business interests are prejudiced just because it's a competitive disadvantage to them, when the other, operational business is able to do that. But this really stressed that it's time for us to look at this. And when we had the prior discussion, we talked about inviting community members, specialists in the area, business owners, and have a committee set up to be able to help and review those ordinances. So the sooner we get on that, the better. So I'd be okay with 6. 7, I don't think they need right now. That really is just a cleanup measure and it can be put off. And then 8 is one that I really don't want cannabis up there on the 2nd floor at all, not just storage, just because it's not as protected. And the security measures that are on the 1st floor are not up there on the 2nd floor. And then I still need to be convinced on why the curbside delivery in 2024, we don't have COVID anymore.
Well, just one more clarifying thing, and then we need to let Mr. Gastel speak. That's okay. And then you can come around again if you want to. So 7 is the activities involving transportation of cannabis for a cannabis retail outlet. So you're not in support of that one?
Yeah, at this point, it's simply a cleanup one, and I'd rather just clean it all up at the same time. I don't think that this impacts their activities at this point. It was more just making things cohesive with the current California codes and properly naming the department.
Okay. All right. Mr. Gastel, you are on.
Okay, yeah, I'm really fine with the proposal that came to us, and I say that mainly because I think we have an excellent staff that's looking out for us and that's looking out for the policies that this council has supported and how they're implemented fairly, among businesses. And I think that the proposed changes are appropriate. That being said, I think it could be healthy. I think it's good that Councilmember Mendoza and Councilmember Snow can maybe change a few things just so we get the most buy-in possible and maybe the most clarity possible. I think we do need to review our marijuana ordinances, and that's a bigger discussion, and that's a healthy discussion. But I wasn't seeing the need for connecting this to the larger discussion of reviewing our ordinances. I've seen this request for a change in the CUP and more along the lines of updating and clarifying and helping a particular business be at an equal playing field with the other marijuana business in town, which I think is an important consideration. So I'm ready to approve the changes that were proposed, but I'm also open to, if Councilmember Mendoza and Councilmember Snow want to work out some changes, I'm okay with that too. It's always good to get a unanimous decision is a healthy thing usually, and so I'm fine with that. I was gonna make a note that I don't know the concern about the second floor. I'm not really getting it. I mean, people are allowed to smoke cannabis at home, and I don't know what the issue would be with the second floor. And with the dispensaries, I don't think there were any problems during the pandemic. I think I would have heard about it. It's possible I missed something, but I feel a little bit ignorant because I wasn't seeing what the problem is with curbside either. But I'm open to putting things off if that helps, and it's always good to clarify things, and it's always good to get them buy-in possible. So I'm happy to go either with the original proposal or with the modifications that our council members come up with. Thank you.
Okay, so, as far as the second floor, yeah, that seemed a little confusing to me too, but I think that, I think I'm okay if we, if it says no cannabis or cannabis products shall be present on the second floor. I mean, that's just changing the roof. I would agree with that. And then I want to address the curbside, issue. And this is personal, for me. I have a granddaughter who developed epilepsy as a teenager. Quite serious, episodes. And then the drugs that she was put on just made her a completely different person. Her mother, who's a nurse, did a lot of research, and they're of a religious faith that doesn't particularly encourage the use of cannabis products, but she wanted to do what was best for her daughter. And so Sammy has been using a cannabis product since she's 15 years old. She's now 27, and no long-term effects. But because of she's also autistic, and just I can see where, because of their family situation, not having to get out of the car and park in the parking lot and walk into a cannabis business. Having the curbside choice or delivery choice is, for a lot of people, this protects their privacy. Because there is a stigma, there is still a stigma attached to the use of this product, which of course, I'm a realist, and I, grew up in the 70s, and I know, I've been there, but I do really see that there is a medical, solution, with this, with cannabis for a lot of people. So, I support the curbside operation, for exactly what, Mr. Gastel and Mr. Fellows addressed also is, it's not gonna increase traffic, because if you're gonna go there and get out of the car and pick it up, or you're gonna pull up and somebody's gonna run it out to your car for you. So either way, you've got a customer showing up. So, unless anybody has any other burning things that they want to bring up, I'm ready for a motion.
I would like to add one thing to that discussion about curbside delivery, which is, it is permitted by state law. And so that preempts local, control over the ability of a storefront business to provide curbside delivery, which is in the parking lot. It's not pulling up to the curb. I know we're saying curbside, but we want to be clear that it's the parking spots that are available, just like you pull up to a restaurant, call them, say, I'm here to pick up my food. They're allowed to use their parking lot for that purpose. So I wanted to chime in. I know I wanted to allow the council to have that discussion before adding my 2 cents. Thank you.
So, I'm looking for a motion.
I move that we adopt the resolution that was provided with the exception in numbered paragraph 8, that it now read section 2 condition of approval to section B. Occupancy on the second floor shall consist of offices only. No cannabis or cannabis products shall be present on the second floor, and the offices shall not be open to the public.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
City Clerk?
Motion. The motion was made by Councilmember Snow with a second by Councilmember Gastel. I will now conduct the roll to go on the record. Councilmember Gastel.
I actually have a question about how Ms. Snow is presenting that, section 8. Because it currently reads, occupancy on the second floor shall consist of offices only. No cannabis or cannabis products shall be stored on the second floor. Right, that's what it currently says. She's suggesting that I'm not understanding what she's suggesting. It sounds like, Ms. Snow, you might be suggesting that we change that to say no cannabis or cannabis products be present on the second floor, and the offices shall not be open to the public. Or you want to say shall not be present and also shall not be stored on the second floor, and the offices shall not be open to the public? Do you want to add that, or are you trying to replace?
Yeah, it's to replace, but I think it'll take care of both things at once. If it can't be present, it can't be stored either.
Okay.
So the motion stands, no modification.
No modification.
Thank you.
Councilmember Gastel.
Aye.
Councilmember Snow.
Aye.
Councilmember LeBaron.
Councilmember LeBaron, aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Mendoza.
Aye.
Motion carries on a vote of 4-0-1.
Thank you, and, thank you for being here, and I appreciate, the deliberation by council tonight. I think we had some good discussions, and I hope everyone felt like they were able to, express themselves freely. So, thank you, council. Okay, moving right along. This next section of the meeting is dedicated to oral reports from the city council about meetings, that they have attended at